Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 7th of June. Today we are going to start with Slaviansk bridgehead. This is our Slaviansk bridgehead. Slaviansk bridgehead is the area that starts on the west from Dovginke, this is Dovginke, and ends on the east with Raigorodok. It starts on the north with Svetogorsk and ends on the south with Slaviansk. So this area is the Slaviansk bridgehead. And I must say that the final battle for Slaviansk has started. As you can see, the West sources map are not planning to update itself. I think that in a day or two, maybe in a week, we're going to see some updates. If we take a look at the Russian sources map, you're going to see that there are a lot of updates. And one of the most important updates is this: Svetogorsk is under the Russian control, and Studionak is under the Russian control as well. So this is the same bridgehead, this is the same area. This is Slaviansk, Raigorodok, Dovginke, Svetogorsk, Studionak, this area. So the most important difference between these two maps, between West sources map and the Russian sources map, is according to the Russian sources, Studionak and Svetogorsk is under the Russian control. I'll remind you how this Russian offensive operation developed during this period. If you take a look at this map, you're going to see the situation before the Russians started their attack towards Yarova. So all these yellow areas were under the Ukrainian control. All these towns, Dovginka, Dolina, Bogorodichne, Сидорово, Пришиб, Татьяновка, Светогорск, Сосново, Studionak, Pasika, Yarova, this forest, all these territories were under the Ukrainians' control. The Russians started their offensive operation from Novoselovka-Drobyshevo towards Yarova. So that was their attack. And they established control over this town. That was their first attack. As soon as they did this, they took a small pause, maybe for regrouping, maybe for planning their tactics, their next steps, and so on. And somewhere a week ago, the Russians started their offensive operation from Yarova towards Svetogorsk. We discussed that operation many times. I told you that the Russians had two ways how to do this: or to attack Svetogorsk directly, or to push this Svetogorsk area from north towards Studionak, Sosnovo, and Pasika from Izum bridgehead. We discussed the reason why the front attack towards Svetogorsk is a very bad idea, and mainly because of that hill. This is the hill because the Ukrainians has their position on this highland, and it was very unsafe to attack Svetogorsk. This is Yarova, this is Svetogorsk, from Yarova towards Svetogorsk, because of the fact that the Ukrainians might cover the Russians in this area with their artillery. But the Russians did their offensive operation, and if you remember, as soon as they did this, we got first piece of news that Ukrainians left Svetogorsk and they moved towards the west bulk of the river Seversky Donetsk River. And they established their position on the hill. They left some forces in Svetogorsk, but I think that it was some kind of rearguard forces just to keep some positions there. But the main forces were located on that side of the river, on the west bulk of the Seversky Donetsk River. So as soon as they did this, we colored the Svetogorsk in the black color, because we clarified this area as the gray zone, where the main clashes were. As soon as that happened, the Ukrainians start retreating from Sosnovo, and the Russians established control over Sosnovo. So we can say that that was the result of first day of that operation. Later, maybe a day later, maybe or 2 days later, from the Russian sources we received information and some confirmation that the Russians managed to establish control over two more towns, Pasika and Dovginke. So this is the picture that we saw during the previous week, during this week as well, until today. Also, we discussed about the Russian offensive operation from Izum bridgehead towards the forest, and the Russians' main idea was to attack Bogorodichne. because of that fact that Ukrainians established their position on the hill, on this hill, the Russians understood that they need to attack Bogorodichne for many reasons, and one of them is to force Ukrainians to leave this hill, or at least to destroy any artillery points on this hill. There was and there are still very heavy clashes in this forest. So we can mark this forest in black color as well. There are very heavy clashes, and mainly there are clashes between commanders, the Ukrainian commanders and the Russian commanders. And for example, this morning we received some update that the Ukrainian colonel of special forces were killed in this forest. This is the picture of Svetogorsk battle, we can say by the end of the previous week. If we take a look at this map, we can say that the Ukrainians had problems, but I must say that they had problems but not so big. And mainly because of the fact that the Russians couldn't cross this river, that the Russians couldn't cross this forest, and still the Ukrainians had their positions on this bridgehead, and they protect this area very, very nice, very professional. No matter that some forces retreated from Svetogorsk bridgehead, it didn't change anything, because it was like useless waste of the Ukrainians to hold this position. The main idea, and main idea is still to hold bridgehead on this side, on this bulk of Seversky Donetsk River. During previous week, we had some updates that the church that was under UNESCO protection was burned in this area, on the site where the Ukrainians were located. There are a few options, a few opposite options. What did happen there? The Russians are saying that Ukrainians burned this church. The Ukrainians are saying that the Russians burned this church. I think that we won't be able to find the truth ever, at least some video documentation about this. I don't think so. The church was located here, right on the hill. This is the church, and this church right on the Ukrainian positions, right on the hill. So there is no more church anymore in this area. And what did happen then? So the Russians stuck in this area, and I have few projections what were they planning to do next to develop their situation in this area. And one of them was to cross the river, try to cross the river somewhere in this back. And I thought, my idea was that the Russians maybe should cross the river somewhere near town Priship. This position is right in the back of this hill, and I thought that it might be a very nice position. At least it's something than nothing to cross the river. This position in back, the Russians might establish their artillery and some commanders' positions on the bulk of the river. For example, on this bulk of the river, which will not allow the Ukrainians to bring their some reinforcement, and so on. And my projection was that the Russians might attack Dolina from Dovginki using this road, using this forest, and so on. Both these projections wasn't the best solution, of course. For example, if the Russians were planning to cross the river, Seversky Donetsk River, near Priship, of course there may be losses, and it's not very close to Svetogorsk. From Priship you will have to move further using these fields. You need to cross tanks, artillery, and so on. So this is an option, but it's not a best solution. The same situation with the attack from Dolginki towards Dolina. This is the forest, and the only one way how the Russian can cross this area using this road. This may be a small field, and there is a very narrow passage here. So we understand if a lot of equipments are in the narrow passage, that means that Ukrainians might use this situation and to bomb the Russians heavily in this area. So that's why this option also, this projection also wasn't so good, but it's more than nothing. Now we came up to our yesterday updates. And if you remember, in my previous video I told you that I don't know why, but the Ukrainians blow up the bridge that connects Svetogorsk and the hill, this bridge. The Ukrainians blew this bridge. And I told you that a lot of Ukrainians retreated from this area, dropped their weapon, equipment, and tried to cross Seversky Donetsk River. and that a lot of Ukrainians surrendered in this area. So something did happen. According to the Russian military authorities, they're saying that the Ukrainians' anti-retreat forces established their position here, that anti-retreat forces blew up this bridge with one purpose, not to allow the Ukrainians that were located in Svetogorsk and Studenok to retreat and to force them to fight till the last Ukrainian. It was the Russian option. And today we got an update from the Russian sources map that Studenok and Svetogorsk is totally under the Russians' control. To tell the truth, when I saw this update, something was unclear to me. We discussed about the situation that it's impossible to take. I also read this confirmation from many Russian sources that it's impossible to take. And this morning, the Russians established entire control over this town. So something happened, and they tried to find out what did happen there and why this operation was so easy for the Russians. Because as far as I understand, as far as I see, the Russians established control over Svetogorsk and Studenok maybe without even a shot. Something like this. I'm sure that there were some clashes there, but mainly the Russians were moving and the Ukrainians were running from this area. So let's understand what's going on, what happened. So this is updated version of our map. You see that Studenok on the north and Svetogorsk is colored in red. So that means that these towns are under the Russian control. And I tried to find some information in the open source internet. How did it happen then? I read a lot of articles. I follow many Telegram channels, tried to Google a lot of information. And I found a couple of Russian sources that confirmed, and it was there was much information about that. It's like they were trying to hide this information just for those people who understand or something like this, or trying to search and to follow to try to understand the situation. And I found information from a couple of Russian sources that the Russians choose one of the options we discussed, and that the Russians during these previous 2 days managed to cross Seversky Donetsk River, and you won't believe where they did this. The Russians managed to cross Seversky Donetsk River near this small village, Tatianovka, near this town. I don't know exactly the place where did they do this. I will put an arrow like showing like approximate place where they did this. But the Russians during last 2 days established control over this small village. There was just commandos, scouts, maybe some heavy amphibious, maybe. But they did this. First they attacked towards Svetogorsk, then they stopped. After that they attacked Tatianovka, established control over Tatianovka. And after that we will discuss what really happened with this bridge, with these anti-retreat forces, and so on. But before, let's update this map for better understanding of the situation in this area. So somehow the Russians managed to cross the river and to establish their position in the suburbs of Tatianovka. I can tell you that from the first attack they managed to establish entire control, maybe part of this town, maybe entire town, I don't know. But as I know, there were very heavy clashes between the forces that located in Tatianovka, between the forces, the Russian forces and the Ukrainians. Also, the Ukrainians started sending some reinforcement over this town, and there were very heavy clashes there. As I understand, later the Ukrainians realized that they lost bridgehead in this town. They realized that there is no way to return control over this town back. This is the reason why the Ukrainians blew this bridge. If you take a look at this area, you're going to see that Tatianovka is very close to this bridge. So there was a very big, high risk that this bridge might be captured by the Russians. So this is the reason, it's my opinion, maybe it's some kind of speculation. I'm just giving you my opinion how I see this situation, because to tell the truth, I also don't want to believe that Ukrainians put there some anti-retreat forces and so on. So I'm trying to understand and to give my projections what happened there. So I think that as soon as the Ukrainians realized that this town is no longer under their control, they understood that they need to retreat towards more reliable positions like Bogorodishna, this area, Sidorovo, Prishep, and they destroyed this bridge. Of course, they informed the Ukrainians that were in Studionok and Svetogorsk that time these two towns were still under the Ukrainians. They informed them about the destroying of this bridge. Maybe it was them who gave them an order to retreat, because the Ukrainians, they really dropped everything there and start retreating, running towards the river, trying to cross the river on their foot. According to information I have right now, the military authorities of Donetsk People's Republic announced that Ukrainians established their fire position in this church. If you take a look at this map, this is the church. So this is church, and this bridge was blown, and this is the area where the Ukrainians established their fire positions. Today I saw a video from drone of this area. This territory is safe, no damage dealt by the Russians or the Ukrainians towards this area. Some sources are saying, the Russian sources are saying, that they managed to establish control over some buildings. The Ukrainians, I haven't heard any information from Ukrainians about the situation, but the situation is following. The Russians established entire control over Svetogorsk, almost without any clashes, and more than that, the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation announced that there is no more territory on this side, on the east side of this river, that is under control by the Ukrainian forces. The only place where the Ukrainians still have some control is Severodonetsk. The area between Severodonetsk and Liman area, Svetogorsk, is totally under the Russians' control. Now let's back to our colored map. This is the map. If you remember, we started this video that all these red clouds with the blue border was under the Ukrainian controls. And less than for 2 weeks, the Russians managed to establish control almost over entire this area. And according to a couple of Russian sources, they managed to cross Seversky Donetsk River somewhere in this place and establish their bridgehead in Tatianovka. Now let's talk about this small village by the name of Tatianovka. This is Tatianovka. This is this village. This is Svetogorsk. This is Yampol, Svetogorsk. This is the church, and this is Tatianovka. Very interesting position, very nice position. And one of the most important benefits of this position is that this position is located on the west bulk of the Seversky Donetsk River. It's a vital question for both sides. I can't tell you for now exactly that this information I told you about Tatianovka is 100% correct. I can't tell you the thing that the Russians established control over this town and that they're holding this position right now. Maybe it was some kind of commandos operation that they crossed the river, moved through Tatianovka, attacked the Ukrainians on the hill, destroyed all their artillery and ice position in this area that allows the Russian to establish without any fire control over Svetogorsk. A lot of options, and I'm sure that in a day or in a two we're gonna understand and see everything. But if the information about Tatianovka is correct, and something tells me that it might be correct, then we can say about big problems for the Ukrainians. To tell the truth, the establishing control over Tatianovka gives the Russians opportunity not to be in a very hurry to attack through the forest or to solve the issue with Dolina and Bogorodishna. They don't need this anymore. Because using the bridgehead over Tatianovka, of course the Russians first will try to establish control over this church, because for them it's a very important question. It's like Orthodox church. More than that, this church belongs to the Russian Orthodox, not to the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have two Orthodox churches on their land, the Russian one and the Ukrainian one. So this one belongs to the Russian. So it was a very important question for them. Using the bridgehead in Tatianovka, of course, the Russians can attack Prishep from both sides, from Tatianovka and from the territory that is also under their control. If you take a look at the Russian sources map, you see that this area is colored in red. So all these lands is under the Russians. It's like Izium. You remember Izium, the Russians were fighting for Izium about a month, and as soon as they established and control over Izium, we saw the Russian regrouping and so on. So this is the most important update that we heard today, that the Russians managed to cross the river and to establish some positions on this bridgehead. And because of that fact, we can say that the battle for Slaviansk has started. And there is no more problem for the Russians to cross the river if they have some position in Tatianovka. Another important update I would like to tell you about our Donetsk and Avdiivka area. About this, you see that Donetsk is still under shelling. Today, the military authority of Donetsk People Republic announced that they have a plan. He didn't tell the details of that plan, but he told that in a day, in a few days, we're gonna see what are they decided to do with Avdiivka and with all this shelling. So it's very interesting to see and to follow this information. Also would like to tell you that this channel, Military Summary Channel, try to provide objective information about the war between Ukraine and the Russian Federation. And we condemn any aggression in Ukraine. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, and enjoy your day. Bye bye.